Hey everyone, we're going to find the 6 trigonometric functions for sine, cosine, tangent, cosecant, secant, and cotan. You notice that cosecant, secant, and cotan are just the reciprocals of sine, cosine, and tangent. So before we get started, we're going to redo this and look at sine. So for sine, we know that sine of our angle, if we look at the 60 here, is opposite, this is 60, opposite over hypotenuse. And our hypotenuse, our r is 1. So if you notice that that's going to be y, your opposite is y. So if you do this one, that's y, that's your vertical. If you do opposite here, that's y. So we're going to rewrite sine as y over our hypotenuse, but our hypotenuse happens to be r. Alright? Cosine is adjacent. If you look at adjacent to 60 degrees is right here. Right here. That is your x. So we're going to rewrite this as x divided by r. And then you just use the rest of them. Opposite over adjacent. So opposite is y. Adjacent is r, or is x. Or you could write it as opposite over hypotenuse divided by adjacent over hypotenuse, and those cancel. Then for the rest, you just flip them. So secant is going to be r over y. Cosecant of theta is going to be r over x. And cotan of theta is going to be x divided by y. And remember, theta just means your angle. That's theta. So we're going to start with 60 and do 120 and so forth. So here we have 60. So 60 is right here. Alright. And so there's opposite this way, and here's your adjacent. And you have your x, your y, and your r. So we just fill that in. So sine of 60 is y, square root of 3 divided by 2 over 1. Well, that just, you don't have to put the 1, because square root of 3 over 2 divided by 1 is just that. So cosine of 60 is your x, which is here. Which is here, so that's 1/2. Then tan, you divide these two, so square root of 3 over 2 divided by 1/2. Cross those out, and you get square root of 3. Now, all you're going to do for the remaining 3 is flip this. So just flip that. 2 square root of 3. 1/2, you flip that, you get 2. And square root of 3, you could write that over 1. So that's going to be 1 over square root of 3. On these two, we're going to rationalize the denominator. I'm going to write 2 over square root of 3 times square root of 3 divided by square root of 3. And that's going to give you 2 square root of 3 divided by 3. So that's what we're going to put here. I'm running out of room. And for this one, 1 over square root of 3 times square root of 3 divided by square root of 3. That equals square root of 3 divided by 3. Okay? So now on the next one we're going to do is 120. So 120 is right here. And if you notice, we have the same x and y, but my x is negative. So we're just going to copy down everything we did for the 60, but my x is negative. When you divide a positive divided by a negative, That's just going to be negative here. And then you just flip it again. So this was 2 over square root of 3 when you flip that, which we know is 2 square root of 3 divided by 3. This is going to be negative 2. And remember this one, we redid that, and that's going to be negative square root of 3 over 3. So you're copying the same values, you're just switching the signs. And notice in quadrant 2, which is where we're at, the only thing that's positive is sine and cosecant. Alright, and now we're going to do 240. If you draw it up, you can go up like that. Alright, and since r is 1, I'm just going to change this. Y divided by r is just y. So I'm just going to pull out the y. In this case, it's square root of 3 over 2. X is negative 1/2. And when you divide those two, when you divide two negatives, you get a positive. And then you just flip it. So we know this could be negative 2 square root of 3 over 3. This is going to be negative 2. And this is going to be square root of 3 over 3. Just copying my values down and changing the signs. The only thing positive in quadrant 3 is tangent and cotangent. Everything else is negative. And on the last one, the same thing. I'm just going to use my y as negative 1/2. My x is square root of 3. Whoops, I wrote this down wrong, right? Yeah. Let me write this again. So this one is 330. Oh, that's why. We're doing 300. Let me change that real quick. So I'll change it. So 300 instead. 300, 300, 300, 300, 300. That's your angle. That's your theta. And so our points, our coordinates for that are 1/2, comma, square root of 3 divided by 2. So your sine is going to be negative square root of 3 divided by 2. Your x is positive, which is 1/2. When you divide that, a negative and a positive, you get a negative, and then you just flip this. So negative 2 square root of 3 over, what was that? Flip that, you get 2. Flip that, you get negative square root of 3 over 3. And notice in quadrant 4, the only thing we have positive is cosine and secant. And that's it. Let me write this. So this is this angle right here. Have a nice day. Take care. Bye-bye.